All right, good morning, everybody from inside our newsroom here at Fox 5 DC. Welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us on another Wednesday here. It's March 7th, 2018. I'm Molly Nevola inside the newsroom. I want to jump over to our first live footage event right now, which is happening over at George Washington University. The TSA administrator, David Pekoske, he was inaugurated or sworn in as the 7th administrator last August. He's actually delivering his first State of the TSA address. We're kind of going to jump into it already in programming, but this is happening live right now at George Washington University. We do have a reporter there, Tom Fitzgerald. You've seen him sometimes inside our newsroom, talking politics, talking general various government agency items, and this time he is there to cover this. He's been tweeting out some of the words that Pekoske has said in his address, talking about the TSA in upcoming years, talking about where it's at, its current state, what they're looking for, and yes, that they are in fact still wary of terrorist action here in the States, and they are not, the U.S. is not absolved from that. TSA is still a security, there's still a security threat there with the agency, and he's on stage right now giving, I can see it right now, I'm going to flip over to right now, giving sort of, I think, a Q&A portion of this event, discussing terrorism threats with people in the audience, with the panel that he is sitting at. So we're going to go right over there to kind of hear what we can learn about TSA, its current state right now. Here is the current administrator, David Pekoske of the TSA. This is live in DC. Check it out.
Yeah, instead of measuring, measure what actually matters. That is something Washington as a whole doesn't always do as well as it maybe should.
Well, and the other thing too is that I'm not an expert in flying an aircraft. I'm not an expert in airport gate operations. But we do have experts on both those things, and it just brings a much more holistic view, and I think we get a much better result.
Absolutely. Let's talk about innovation and sort of both from a technological perspective, I mean, obviously, and also from an entrepreneurial ethos perspective and how you empower the workforce and others, and then sort of this less agile acquisition process. How do you sort of blend and square that circle?
Right. Yeah, it's a great
question.
question.
And Congress and 100 committees that have some bite at the apple on your budget.
Well, I think everybody agrees that we need to do it all faster. And so the challenge is getting everybody to agree on how to do it faster, because our acquisition process is adapted over time based on acquisitions that had some challenges. And so and whenever there's a challenging acquisition, the process gets modified so that never happens again. And so you get layer upon layer of process added. What we're doing is we're looking at some of the very innovative acquisition processes that certain elements of the Department of Defense use and see if we might be able to model some of those in TSA. And the Department of Homeland Security is very, very focused on this, because across the entire department, no matter which component you're talking to or even the department themselves, there's a strong desire to speed up our acquisition process, but also at the same time get very good at clearly defining what it is we want, buying the right things at the right, on schedule, within cost, and having the capabilities that we require. So this is a work in progress, but I do think that there's a real opportunity to pull some of the, like we talked about earlier, some of the capabilities of the private sector. Because for us, as you know, to put something into testing and evaluation, you need to have money appropriated to do that. Mm-hmm. In the private sector, you don't need to go through an appropriations process. You have the money. And so you can put resources to something very quickly. And I think one of the things that across government we need to get a little bit better at is, in my private sector experience, gets reinforced in this regard, is we have to be willing to come up to a point and say, okay, we've tried something and it doesn't work, and then stop, and then go on to something else that will work. Oftentimes, we get very afraid to reach a fail point, but the idea is to fail early and then move on and try something else. And every entrepreneurial organization I know of does that. And so that's part of what I'm talking about with bringing TSA back to its entrepreneurial roots, is try some things, don't be afraid to take some risk, be measured about it, be reasonable about it. If it doesn't work, stop, and we'll go on to something else.
Now that's, I think, so important. Mm-hmm. I mean, both from an adversarial standpoint, we're not talking about risk elimination. Mm-hmm. We're talking about managing risk as effectively and as efficiently as we can through multiple layers. But that also goes for the blue side for getting systems in place. The problem is it's very hard to take risks, and it takes leadership to stand up for the men and women who do that. So that I think is an incredibly important point, and I know you have so many others who would support that effort. Calculated. I mean, we're not talking about boondoggles on taxpayer dollar, but we're talking about calculated risk.
Well, and when you look at an airport, and you look at a large airport, there are many, many screening lanes in a large airport. You can, in my view, in a smart way, experiment with some things in a lane, because it's not the whole airport, and you can meter your passenger flow to be able to do that. The other thing that pertains to this, I think, is critically important, and I would submit that TSA certainly has some work to do in this regard. We have, as I said, tremendous men and women that are on the front lines of our organization, and they're doing the mission every single day. And when you and I do something every single day, we always think of ways, how can we do this better? And what we need to get better organizationally is, how do we get the ideas from our officers who are performing the mission day in and day out to get up to a point where we can make a more enterprise level decision. And a key part of that is to be able to, one, get the information that our experts on the front lines have, be able to evaluate it quickly and get an answer back to them. And I think it's okay if the answer going back is, hey, we've looked at your idea and we don't think it's right at this point in time for TSA-wide application. But the important part is you have to say because of this reason. Here's the reason why we don't think it's applicable right now. But thanks for participating. As long as you keep that cycle relatively tight and give good answers back, you're going to get more suggestions coming up. If you don't do that, and a suggestion kind of goes up into a dark cloud somewhere and never comes back out, you're not going to get many more good ideas coming your way.
That's awesome. I mean, again, something you would see, not to turn to the military, but the hot wash process after a situation. I mean, the very pointy end of the spear has as much say as the combatant commander does at that point to try to learn from it and to protect them from the risk that they speak bluntly. I think that's crucially and critically important. Let's look overseas a little bit. I mean, obviously, the U.S. challenge is incredibly big, large from a scale perspective, but you're also dependent upon working with others in an international environment where your ability to influence is not always as strong as it would be in the United States. Let's talk to us a little bit about understanding that broader system. What, if I can be unfair, who are the shining stars, and who should we be thinking about in a not so positive way?
Well, I think work at things globally, which we put a lot of effort towards, because we would really much rather raise global standards overall, and there are some bodies like ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization, that have a plan to do that. But the way we approach it, and I think it's been very successful to date, is anytime you're working with a partner, what's important in that interchange is a relationship. You have to develop a relationship, and you have to develop trust, and you have to develop understanding of somebody else's perspective.
Before the balloon goes up.
Absolutely.
Before a crisis.
It's all pre-need relationships that are in place. And I personally spend a good amount of time doing that, is just to call up one of my international partners with nothing particular on the agenda, but just, hey, how's it going? What kinds of things can we work on together? And so, our key partners are, of course, our Five Eye partners from an intelligence perspective, because we all can see the whole load of intelligence information that might be causing us some concern. And what we endeavor to do is to, when we look at something, and again, it's a bit of the same process we use with our industry partners, is, hey, here's what we're seeing. What are you seeing? And then how do you think your government will intend to react to what we're seeing? And we very much try to coordinate that and really kind of see it from another perspective, because I think these threats are generally global threats, and of course American airlines fly all over the globe, so we have a concern with American carriers all over the globe, and we have our cargo carriers, our pure cargo airlines that are in lots of places around the globe that don't go direct back to the United States. And so, a key part of this is definitely the partnerships, first and foremost with our Five Eye partners, but really trying to work within the framework of an international organization, but trying to put some more. Anytime you have an international agreement, each individual country is going to want to put more specific detail into what certain terms mean or what certain measures might include. And so that's part of the process, is to kind of flesh out some of those international plans and then put an aggressive timeline that's achievable, that's not so aggressive that you're just going to plow through.
And if there are laggards, would you have some say in influencing concern of inbound travel?
We would. And in fact, the Aviation and Transportation Security Act, which formed TSA, passed by the Congress in 2001, almost right after the 9/11 attacks, gives the TSA administrator significant authority to be able to do that, and we have exercised it.
And you will exercise.
We have, and we will, and it's been very effective. I mean, we can require certain measures for any flight that's coming towards the United States or any issue pertaining to an American owned carrier.
And I had to live through passenger name record, the PNR debate, so that's more or less been addressed with the Europeans at this stage, right? So I think they recognize the threat and vulnerability as acutely as we do. So, no, great. And sort of on the technology side, one more question in terms of the workforce itself, and how do you empower the workforce to keep up with all the technological advancements? Are you investing in the training and education that's needed? And then sort of on the dark side, is there an insider threat issue you guys are also thinking about?
Sure. Well, one of the major themes of the strategy that we're rolling out is a commitment to our people. And a commitment to our people, to me, means significantly investing in our workforce so that they have the tools, the procedures, the training to be able to do the job that we ask them to do, which is a very difficult job to do. And you have to be on your toes 100% of the time. And the threat is absolutely there, particularly on the aviation side, as you mentioned. And so we're going to be investing more and more in our workforce. One of the things that we've put in place is still working its way through the executive branch approval process, but for our transportation security officers, who are the lion's share of the TSA workforce, what is the career progression for those transportation security officers? So we can say to a new person coming on board, hey, here's your pay, and here's the entry-level training we're going to provide, and then here's a progression for you as you advance from an officer to a lead officer to a supervisory officer to a manager, and basically lay out the organization's commitment to our employees that as you advance, this is the both resident and non-resident training that we're committed to provide you to develop. I think the other thing that's really important with respect to the workforce, I feel this way, I know you do, and every job you're doing, I want to know why I'm doing something. If you ask me to do something, I want to know why. Give me a reason why. It's not a challenge. It's just I can do my job a whole lot better if I understand what's driving what you're doing. But kind of underpinning all this is that we are not a resource-rich organization. We have a top-line budget that, like every other federal agency, has constraints attached to it. And while we're increasing the presence of officers at our checkpoints, I still think more needs to be done there, because what ends up happening at our checkpoints is when we have surge periods, like around Thanksgiving or around the December, January holidays, or coming up in the next week or so around spring break, our officers at those checkpoints are working required overtime, and we are not able to do as much training as we would desire to do during a surge period. And if you think about it, when you have more people coming through your checkpoints, so we'll hit days we'll have 2.7 million people coming through the checkpoints during these surge periods. That's really when you want your workforce trained. And so we need to put more resources on the front line to be able to provide that flexibility, to be able to pull some officers off and to do some training on the technology.
What would it take to allow that? Some flexibility and greater discretion from the administrator to from a budget standpoint?
A couple things. In the President's fiscal 19 budget, we have an increase in frontline officers, and that's going to be important. So as that budget goes through the approval process, there'll be an increase there. There's also an increase in the fiscal 18 budget. As you know, that's still going through the continuing resolution process, so that's not yet in place. And then additionally, I mentioned in my talk that we're going to look at how we resource the organization. And what I'm going to look at is, where is my risk in the organization? And then where have we brought down some risk through other things we've done? And then, in my view, we ought to take some resources from areas that we might have brought down some risk and put it to where we have current risk. So in a way, this is trying to get ahead of the 2-year appropriation cycle to move human resources, full-time equivalents, into areas where we have the most risk. Finally, the new technology is absolutely critical to all this, and the computer tomography technology, the new X-ray technology that we're looking to deploy at our checkpoints. We've gotten tremendous support from both.
We hosted CATCO recently, and he made a big push for that right on this stage.
He did. Chairman McCall has made.
And McCall,
absolutely,
Chairman,
and has the administration. We have in our budget over $70 million for this project in fiscal 19. That's a new ad. It's a completely new ad. We don't even have a formal project stood up. So, typically by the budgeting rules, until you have a formal project stood up, you don't get resources for it. But the administration saw the priority, saw the need, and put a significant amount of resources in our budget to develop that technology. But what that does, from my perspective, in addition to allowing us to do a much better job at detecting things at the checkpoint, in terms of how many we can detect and at what weight levels we can detect, it also gives the officers a much better tool. Because if you're looking at a screen and it's two-dimensional, and you can imagine, before I came into this job and I was a passenger, I always watched that X-ray operator who I never could see the screen completely, but I always watched that X-ray operator, and I knew what I put in my carry-on bags. And I'm thinking, how can they figure out what I have in there based on the density of what's there? This CT technology goes from a two-dimensional view to a three-dimensional view. So the officers can move it around, they can slice it, you're going to get a much better view.
And that technology's here.
It's here.
It's being deployed in a limited...
Right, we're still doing some testing. We do use it now in check bags. So all your check bags, when you check a bag at an airport, it goes into that system, and that's also CT technology. But only recently have we gotten to the point where those machines are of a size and weight that we can actually put them in a checkpoint. So I'm really excited about that program, and I think it's going to make a huge difference at our checkpoints, and certainly for our officers doing a pretty difficult job, trying to make sense out of that image.
Absolutely, and I think there's a lot of congressional support for that as well. And we're getting close to that witching hour, and the tyranny of time requires I be a bit of a tyrant. But I've got one more question, sort of looking at that threat environment again. And I mean, if you look back over time, in the 80s, hostage taking was the terrorist tactic of choice. Obviously, 9/11 turned the plane itself in that horrific attack into a weapon. So it's sort of always been we tend to look ahead through rear view mirrors. And then afterwards you saw, obviously, Al-Qaeda's affiliates, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula in particular, having some of the most innovative IED capabilities to try to evade security. When we think of the homegrown jihadist threat, or a homegrown threat, period, I mean, and we're not just thinking of aviation, what is it that TSA is doing that perhaps isn't as well known as it should be in terms of trucks or vehicles being used as weapons, as we've seen extensively overseas? Are there any initiatives there that TSA is engaged in that perhaps the American citizens you serve deserve should know about?
Sure. That's a major concern of anybody in security right now is that homegrown, self-radicalized individual gets radicalized on the internet. If you look at some of the attacks that have occurred just in New York, Halloween and December 11th, those individuals weren't people that were on anybody's scope at that point in time. And so we have done some things to get much better at being able to try. You just don't you don't have advanced information, so how can you develop a security system or further enhance a security system to deal with this threat that might present itself that you're not, you don't anticipate that day? And a couple things that we've been doing. We host public area security summits. So we bring all of the owners and operators of transportation systems. So in the airport environment, it would be the airport police department, the airport authority, if there's an authority, the local police department, TSA, CBP, the FAA, airlines. And we bring them together and we talk about, hey, if something happened in a public area of an airport, how would we collectively respond to it? And then you can just
there have been real incidents at the airport, not just the aviation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Scotland, LA.
All right, guys, I want to take you away briefly from this state of the TSA at George Washington University and show you a couple of other scenes that are going on right now. In fact, the Vice President and the President are slated to speak at the same time. They're at two different events. Take a look right here. We'll jump down to Lexington, Kentucky. This is a live look at where Vice President Pence is going to be speaking at the America First Policies event. This is in Lexington, Kentucky. But I think first and foremost, because it's just starting up, we're going to take us back up to DC to the JW Marriott Hotel. Here's a live look inside there. President Trump making remarks in just a few moments here at the Latino Coalition Legislative Summit right here in DC at the Marriott. So let's check into this, and it looks like the president's coming up shortly.
Which we love, which we work for, which we fight for, and which we die for. When we don't agree, we don't. But when we do agree, we do, across party lines, and yes, even across election results. My father was a great leader, and he taught me a long time ago that our community is too important to be so partisan that we're out. We can never be out of access, out of influence, out of meaningful representation in the corridors of power. And that is more true today than at any other time. Ladies and gentlemen, the introduction of a president is rare, and it's a solemn occasion. And I embrace that opportunity again today. I've had the opportunity to do it before for my old boss, George W. Bush, and it is gratifying to know that I'm introducing a president who really understands entrepreneurship. As a business owner himself, President Donald Trump understands the pressures, the challenges, and yes, the great joys that business owners, large, medium, and small, go through every single day. He appreciates that the cost of healthcare is crushing us. He knows that regulations can suffocate us, and he knows that taxes have been too high and can discourage us. So he's been doing something about all these things. His Labor Department is looking into the creation of association health plans. That is huge. That is big for our small businesses. That's a game changer. And his regulatory agencies are cutting the red tape. And that's another major, major opportunity. It doesn't get enough attention. And of course, he has already signed historic tax reform, which is bringing relief to the job creators in America's small business community. The engine of America, 26 million, actually 30 million strong. We know these are the reasons why in recent months, small businesses have experienced a surge in optimism. And because small businesses make up half of our economy, an optimistic small business sector is good for the economic growth and job creation that this country still desperately needs. But leaders in Washington, they don't create jobs, they don't create wealth. What they can do is create the right environment for entrepreneurs to flourish. And that's what the Latino Coalition advocates for every single day. That right environment for Latinos to start and grow their own businesses, not just in the beginning, but over the long run. Together with our partners at the state and local Hispanic chambers, and I thank so many of you for coming all around the country to be with us today. We call, and we will continue to call, on our national leaders every day to always keep small business in mind, because all of their words and decisions impact on the environment which we operate under. President Trump's contribution to creating a healthy economic environment is welcomed by our 4 million Hispanic businesses. It's something that really matters to our Hispanic community. So please, join me in welcoming the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Thank you, and thank you, Hector. I'm thrilled to be here with so many of our incredible leaders in the Latino business community. And you folks are good business people. I know that. I know that for a fact. I've had to compete against you for a long time. In fact, I said, I want to get out of that. I want to be president. It's easier. But I especially want to thank Chairman Hector Barreto for the invitation and for the many years of his leadership on behalf of America's small businesses. I also want to recognize Secretary Chow, who's joining us today. Elaine? Hi, Elaine. You're doing a fantastic job, by the way. Thank you very much, Elaine. Most of all, I want to thank all of you, the Latino business leaders, who are living proof that the American dream is back and stronger than ever. The Latino community embodies the pioneering spirit of America. We're a nation that loves adventure, and you love adventure, that celebrates risk-taking and that embraces faith and family as the true center of American life. As president, I am committed to unleashing the full potential of the Latino community by removing government burdens, by restoring safety and security to our neighborhoods, and by defending America's interests so that all of our citizens can prosper. America First is about unity. It's about coming together as one family, one big, beautiful American family, no matter our race or color or creed, to protect our jobs, our communities, and our country. We want all Americans to thrive and flourish together. Our program is working far beyond our wildest expectations. We've created nearly 3 million jobs since the election. Think of that, 3 million jobs. If I would have said that prior to the election, nobody would have believed it. All right? They would not have believed it. Today, we have more Hispanic Americans working than ever before in our history, setting records. New jobless claims have hit a 48-year low last week. And last year, the Hispanic unemployment rate reached the lowest level in history. Congratulations. And I'm proud to report Hispanic unemployment has now remained at or below 5% for the longest period of time ever recorded. You're doing very well. That's good. Consumer confidence is at an 18-year high. Business confidence is through the roof, with a record number of small business owners saying that now is a good time to expand. And by the way, we're going to keep your playing field level so that we don't have outside interests coming in and hurting our country, which they've been doing. They've been doing a lot of that over the last 25 years, and we're doing a lot of things to stop that. And you're seeing that actually already in the numbers. That's why these numbers have been so good, or great, I might add. Latino-owned businesses now make up more than 10% of all businesses in the United States, providing jobs for more than 2 million American workers. These businesses contributed nearly $500 billion to our economy last year alone. Latinos are also starting new businesses at 3 times the national average. That's pretty good, 3 times. The American economy is coming back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and Latino businesses are helping to lead the way. You're paving the path. At the center of America's resurgence are the massive tax cuts I just signed into law. Now that is a lot of money in your pockets, no matter where you're coming from. Business or personal, it's a lot of money. It's the biggest tax cut and reform in American history. We got no Democrat votes, by the way, not one. Now they're all saying, maybe we should have voted. Do you notice they're having second thoughts? They're saying, we think we made a big mistake. We didn't get one vote. And at the heart of our plan itself is the tremendous relief for working families and small businesses. A typical family of four earning $75,000 a year will see an income tax cut of more than $2,000. That's not crumbs. Slashing their tax bill in half. We nearly doubled the standard deduction, meaning a married couple will not have to pay one dime of income tax on the first $24,000 that they earn. We doubled the child tax credit because the most important investment we can make is in our children. That was a big thing. When I signed the tax cuts just before Christmas, it was like jet fuel for the American economy. Within hours, companies began announcing thousands of new jobs and thousands of dollars each in bonuses to their workers. Over 4 million workers have already received tax cut bonuses, and the number continues to grow every single day. As a result of our business tax cuts and reforms, the typical family will see their annual household income eventually rise by an average of $4,000 a year. We have finally given American businesses a level playing field, and you'll see more of this in the coming weeks. We're bringing it back. Our jobs have been stolen from us. Our businesses have been taken. Our factories have been closed. It's all coming back. You saw 2 weeks ago, Chrysler announced they're leaving Mexico and they're coming back into Michigan. Going to open up a big plant. We have many plants opening. Many plants are opening. They're coming back. For a lot of reasons they're coming back, but one of them is the tax cuts. Another is the regulations. But now we're able again to compete with anyone in the world. Joining us today are two business leaders who are at the forefront of America's economic revival. Jeanette Prenger is the president of Echo Select, a technology staffing business in Kansas City, Missouri. Great place. A lot of people from Kansas City, I noticed. Seen a lot of people from Kansas City, a lot of friends there. Not only is her company's tax bill going down, her sales are going way up as other businesses hire and just really are working very hard. She's filling those jobs for those businesses, and they're really creating something very special. In fact, Jeanette says her business is experiencing the best quarter in the company's 22-year history. And that's great news for everybody. Congratulations to Jeanette. Where is Jeanette? Where is Jeanette? Hi, Jeanette. Pretty good, right? Big difference. Big difference. Yep. A lot of people are saying the same thing. Thank you very much, Jeanette. Adam Devone is also joining us. Adam is the founder of Benefits Exchange Alliance, an HR consulting firm headquartered in Orange County, California. As a result of tax reform, Adam was able to provide generous 5-figure bonuses to every one of his employees. They very much appreciated it. He's also hired 6 new workers, and he plans to hire as many as 15 more this year. Adam, wherever you are, in this really beautiful room, packed with people. Adam, thank you very much. Thank you, Adam. Great job. A big difference, Adam, like day and night. That's great. Thank you, Adam. And thank you both for investing in your workers and investing in your country. Thank you very much. In addition to passing a historic tax cut, we're also slashing job-killing regulations. And I have friends, great business people. Many of them think that the regulation cutting is more important, frankly, than even these big tax cuts. According to a survey by the National Small Business Association, the average small business spends $83,000 to comply with regulations in just their first year of existence. Under the Trump administration, we are finally getting government off of your backs and out of your pocketbooks. That is why I'm proud to report we have cut more regulations than any administration in the history of our country. And we've only had 12, 13 months now to do it. So in a short period of time, we've cut more regulations than any administration, whether it's 4 or 8 or in one case 16 years. Nobody's even close. And Elaine, while I'm looking at you, maybe you could cut some more because, you know, it would take 17, 20, 21 years to get a roadway built. We want to bring those numbers down to 2 years and even 1 year. And if it's not done properly and environmentally good, we're not going to approve it. But you're not going to have to wait 20 years to find out whether or not it's going to be approved. So I know, Elaine, you're working on it. In fact, I've just instructed my whole cabinet. We're going to go for that final 40%. And we need some regulation. But you had regulations on top of regulations. You had the same approval to get from 4 or 5 different agencies. And it was ridiculous. It was impossible to do business. One of the reasons we're doing so well now is because of the regulation cutting. So, Elaine, you'll go and start cutting some more as soon as you get back to the office, right? We want to get those roads down to 1 year instead of 2. And we will cut even more red tape if Congress acts on my infrastructure proposal. You know, we have an infrastructure proposal in front of Congress. The Democrats don't want to approve it because they don't want to give us a victory. They think we've had too many victories. We've had a lot of victories. We've had a lot. And we're trying to have a DACA victory for everybody, by the way, and the Democrats are nowhere to be found. They're nowhere to be found. It's really terrible. We're ready. You know the expression, ready, willing, and able. We're ready, willing, and able. They are nowhere to be found. But also infrastructure. Also, the people in the administration. We have hundreds of people sitting out there, and they're obstructionists. They don't want to approve them. So then we get blamed for not having. It is just a terrible thing. Elaine, we have so many people, is that correct? So many people from other agencies. Your agency gets pretty good treatment, I think. But I will say that many of the agencies just have so many people out there, including diplomats from, as an example, Germany, major countries. We have diplomats. They wait online because the Democrats don't want to approve them because they want to obstruct. And that's not good. It's never been like this, ever. They've never held them this long. Republicans have never done this to this extent with the Democrats. And Schumer and the Democrats ought to get going because it's the wrong thing for our country. It's a very terrible thing. I've asked Congress to pass a bill that generates $1.5 trillion on infrastructure and cuts the permitting process from 10 years down to 2 years or even less. After years of rebuilding other countries, and we have built a lot of countries, it's time to start building our country again. But a wealthy nation must be a safe nation. Protecting the security of our country is my highest duty. It's the most important thing I can do. That is why my administration is committed to securing our border, dismantling dangerous gangs, and stopping the flow of deadly drugs that are just pouring across. It's never been a problem like over the last 3-4 years. And we're doing a job, and I will say the Border Patrol and the ICE and all of the different people that are working so hard, law enforcement generally, they're working so hard on the drug problem. Never been a problem. Many countries are having this problem, but there's never been anything like it in the history of this world. And it's destroying people's lives, so many. And we're going to stop it. Every American child, regardless of where they live or what family they come from, should be able to grow up in a safe community. My administration submitted a balanced and responsible immigration reform plan to Congress. Our plan fully secures the border, provides a permanent solution to DACA, which we're really working on, and modernizes our immigration system by ending extended family migration and the lottery system so we can eventually have a merit-based system where people can come in and work for your companies, work for you, and do a phenomenal job, people that love our country and that want to love our country and our people. These reforms are supported by the vast majority of Latino voters. In fact, more than 8 in 10 Latino voters think immigration to our country should be based on skill, not just a relationship with people you don't even know. This is the mainstream view of all Americans, including Latinos. Yet the Senate Democrats filibustered our plan because they don't care about the immigration system or reform, and they don't want to solve the problem. They would rather use it to get elected. That's not working so well. But we remain committed to immigration reform that protects our country, strengthens our economy, and lifts our workers from poverty to prosperity. We want every American to know the dignity of work, the pride of a paycheck, and the satisfaction of a job well done. Because when our people are free to live their lives and to follow their hearts, there is nothing at all that we cannot achieve. What we are witnessing now is the rebirth of the American dream. Everybody in the world is talking about it. It looks a little nasty when you watch the news, or as I sometimes call it, the fake news. But everybody in the world is talking about what's happening in the United States. It's really incredible. Best numbers in so many different ways. Companies, unemployment, so many records we're setting. The whole world is talking about it. And each of you here today, along with millions of hardworking Latinos all across our nation, are making that dream into a reality. You're really making America great again. A lot of the people in this room are making America great again. You're unleashing the American spirit. You're bringing jobs to American communities. And you are fighting for the American way, because you know that America is a nation that thinks big, dreams even bigger, and always reaches for the stars. You're reaching for the stars. I know so many of you, you're reaching for the stars. You have been for a long time, and now you're getting there. Together, we will build great buildings, invent incredible new products, discover amazing new technologies, and blaze bold new trails in science and medicine and the arts. And we will do it all with American skill, American grit, and American pride. This is our time. This is our moment. Go get DACA. Go push those Democrats. I'm telling you, it's close. So this is a moment for DACA, for all of us. But this is a very special moment. A lot of tremendous things can happen here. Right now, so many tremendous things can happen if people want them to happen. This is how we are taking care of our people, taking care of our country. I just want to thank all of you for being here. Having known so many in the room and having respected all of you, I can say that I'm very proud of you, and I know you're very proud of our country. So thank you all very much. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys, so that was President Trump in downtown D.C., which, by the way, is not the picture you're looking at in the lower left corner of your screen. That's New York City looking straight up like Gotham today, guys. Look at that rain, the gray New York City live shot right there with all the snow and the rain up in the Northeast. Take a look at D.C. right now, though. This is a straight Gotham shot. Look at that Capitol Dome. That's where President Trump was earlier, just a few moments ago. Let's jump down to Lexington, Kentucky, where the Vice President is giving remarks to the America's First Policies gathering. I see him right now on the video. Let's go down there live before we lose him and see what he has to say. He's making remarks down there in Kentucky simultaneously with the president. This is the event in Kentucky. Here we go, guys.
Mr. President, let those that would threaten us and our allies know that all options are on the table, that we'll continue to bring economic and diplomatic pressure to bear until the regime in Pyongyang abandons their nuclear ambitions. Now, we all heard reports out yesterday suggesting North Korea might be willing to talk about denuclearization. And as the President said yesterday, it's possible that we've made progress. But the world should know, as the President has said, the U.S. is ready to go hard in either direction. And whatever direction the talks with North Korea take, we will remain resolved, and we will continue to stand strong until North Korea abandons its nuclear and ballistic missile program once and for all. So it's been about strength abroad and strength here at home. And here at home, we've taken decisive action as well to uphold the rule of law and to rev the engine of the American economy. You know, this president promised to appoint strong conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And as I stand before you today, President Trump has appointed more judges to the Court of Appeals of this country in a single year than any president in American history, and that doesn't even include Justice Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court of the United States. President Trump promised to roll back the heavy hand of government, and back in that campaign, he actually promised that we would eliminate 2 regulations for every 1 new federal rule put on the books. But the truth is, as I stand before you today, with the strong support of leaders in Congress like Congressman Andy Barr, this administration has repealed 22 federal regulations for every new rule put in the Code of Federal Regulations. We repealed the Waters of the USA and the disastrous Stream Protection Rule that's been destroying so many jobs in eastern Kentucky, just to name a few. We also promised to unleash American energy, the energy that powers business just like this one and powers the lives of our communities and our families. From early in this administration, this president approved the Keystone and Dakota pipelines. He rolled back the Clean Power Plan, and President Trump put America first when he withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Accord. And under President Donald Trump, the war on coal is over. This president also promised to fight for the men and women who run our factories, who build our cars, raise our crops and our livestock, and make the nation proud with every product that bears those beautiful words, made in the USA. And under President Trump's leadership, we're cracking down on unfair trade practices. We're fighting for trade deals that are fair and reciprocal and put America first. As the President said yesterday, when it comes to trade, the United States has been taken advantage of by too many countries for too long, and that's not going to happen anymore. Whether it be renegotiating NAFTA or protecting our steel and aluminum industries, President Trump will always put American workers, American farmers, and American companies first. So it's been about promises made and promises kept. But you all remember that President Trump also promised to cut taxes across the board for working families and job creators, large and small. And a little bit more than 2 months ago, President Trump signed the largest tax cuts and tax reform in American history. That's promises made and promises kept. So, you know, in this White House, it's about strength and growth for our nation and our people, and it's working. We're only 1 year into this administration, and already the results are nothing short of remarkable. You know, I'm from Kentucky's favorite neighbor. I mentioned it before. Great state of Indiana. When I was governor of Indiana, I remember more than a little bit of friendly competition we had with Kentucky. And I'm not just talking about in March. We competed every day for jobs and businesses, and while I'll always be a little partial to the Hoosier State, I got to give it to you, Kentucky. Kentucky is growing like never before, thanks to the leadership of President Trump and the leadership of Governor Matt Bevin. I mean, nowhere that's more evident than in Kentucky's automotive industry. The Bluegrass State is one of America's largest car and truck producers. In the past year, Kentucky's automakers have made record investments to accelerate their growth and expansion even more, creating good-paying jobs. Toyota's largest plant is less than 20 miles from where I'm standing right now, in Georgetown, Kentucky. And last year, the company announced that it would invest $1.3 billion in its Georgetown plant and the more than 8,000 Kentuckians who work there. Let's hear it for that great company, for believing in Kentucky and believing in America. But you know, it's not just automakers that are growing and investing in their workers again. Since Election Day 2016, businesses large and small have actually created more than 2.5 million new jobs all across this country, including 36,000 new jobs right here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Unemployment hasn't been this low in 17 years. Here in the Bluegrass State, the unemployment rate has dropped 13% since Election Day. And today, there are more Americans working today than ever before in the history of this country. And after just 1 year, under President Trump's leadership, manufacturing is booming. American companies have created nearly 200,000 new good-paying manufacturing jobs, including 2,100 new manufacturing jobs all across Kentucky. And after 8 years of wages that just seem to be stuck in neutral, Americans are seeing their paychecks rise today faster than any point in more than 10 years. The truth is, because of the president you supported, the agenda you've supported, growth is back, confidence is back. In a word, America is back. So thank you, Kentucky. Now, but as this president likes to say, for all that we've accomplished together in the last year, that's what President Trump just calls a good start. The truth is, we believe the best days for American prosperity are just around the corner, because those tax cuts are just starting to make a difference. I mean, the truth is, we cut taxes, as you heard from this great panel. We cut taxes for working families, so you can keep more of your hard-earned money. We cut taxes for American businesses, so Kentucky manufacturers can compete and win with any companies anywhere in the world. And we not only cut taxes on working families and businesses, we also gave the American relief from Obamacare by repealing the individual mandate tax at the heart of that disastrous law. It's gone. You know, all told, about 90% of working families are going to see a tax cut reflected in their paycheck before this year is out. And here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, our tax cuts will save the typical family of four nearly $2,100 a year. That's real money. But you know, it's not just about lower taxes for working families. It really is about bigger paychecks. Businesses investing their tax savings in American jobs and in American workers. Our tax cuts for businesses have given them unprecedented opportunities to increase pay for employees and make the kind of investments that create new jobs. In fact, we believe workers in Kentucky can expect to see pay raises of more than $3,700 in the years ahead, and we're already well on our way. Businesses large and small all across this state have already announced plans to pay their workers more, hand out bonuses, and hire more people and open new locations. Last year, you all heard the news. Apple announced a $1 billion investment in American manufacturing companies. But in the wake of our tax cuts, instead of $1 billion, Apple said they were going to make it $5 billion in America's manufacturers, and the first 200 is going to be spent right here in Kentucky. And across the nation, over 400 companies nationwide have announced plans to invest since the tax cut, some $480 billion in new investments. It's literally just been 2.5 months. And as I stand before you today, more than 4.3 million Americans have already gotten a raise or a bonus thanks to our tax cuts. Folks, that's good news for working families. Great news for states like Kentucky and a growing America. And you know, a $1,000 bonus at the end of the year, I think, is a big deal. But not everybody thinks that. I mean, you might have heard the woman that wants to be Speaker of the House again, Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi actually said that a $1,000 bonus in the paycheck for working Americans was, in her words, nothing more than crumbs. Now, let me remind you all, my wife and I come from the Joseph A. Bank wing of the West Wing. You with me on that? I mean, yeah, thank you for that. I mean, seriously, folks, when our kids were little, you know, another $1,000 in the paycheck at the end of the year that we weren't expecting, we had a term for that. Christmas. All right? You with me? I mean, look, the truth is these pay raises and these bonuses are making a real difference in the lives of working families across the country. And I want to say from my heart, any leader who says that $1,000 in the pockets of working families is crumbs is out of touch with the American people. That being said, you've got some great leaders representing Kentucky and Washington, D.C., and I want to take just a minute to thank them. First and foremost, I want to thank your two great senators. Senator Rand Paul, who stood with our administration, and for all that we accomplished last year on regulations, on judges, on tax cuts, America owes a debt of gratitude to the Senate Majority Leader, Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, a great friend and a great leader. And you heard from him today, so you don't need to hear from it from me, but Congressman Andy Barr has been fighting every day for Kentucky's farmers, manufacturers, and working families. And we're grateful. We're grateful, Congressman. I also want to thank an old friend of mine, Congressman Hal Rogers, the Dean of the Kentucky delegation. He's been serving the Bluegrass State his entire life as a member of the Kentucky National Guard and as a leader in the House of Representatives. You know, whether it's the congressmen that I mentioned and senators or Congressman Brett Guthrie, Jamie Comer, Tom Massey, I'm proud to report to all of you, every single one of these leaders voted to cut your taxes and put Kentucky first. And they have stood with our administration every step of the way. Would you get on your feet and just show how much we appreciate the principled conservative leadership that Kentucky sends to Washington, D.C.? But for all we've done together, the truth is we still have more work to do. In case you didn't notice it, you elected a builder to be President of the United States. And President Donald Trump's going to work with this Congress, and we're going to rebuild the roads and bridges and infrastructure and airports and ports of America. We're going to continue to fight for trade deals that are free and reciprocal, that put American workers first. We're going to fix a broken immigration system with policies that focus on the best interests of American workers and American families. And folks, President Trump and I are going to keep making good on our promises to the people of Kentucky. But the truth is, in the days ahead, the most important work of this country won't take place in Washington, D.C. It's going to continue to take place in communities just like this one. And what the President knows and I know is the strength of this nation has always been found in the hearts and in the character.
All right, guys, taking you back into the newsroom just briefly, looking at that shot of Gotham-looking Capitol Dome there. I want to take you over to Sacramento, California, where the Governor and Attorney General of California have come into a meeting that was unannounced. I wasn't quite sure that this was happening. It just popped up. So let's go over there. Now, just this morning, Attorney General Jeff Sessions spoke from Sacramento about sanctuary cities. I'm not quite sure if this has anything to do with that, but let's listen into the Governor and the Attorney General in Sacramento.
It's like dividing America. There's been a lot of concern about people, foreign people, who sow division and discord. Now we have the Attorney General doing precisely that. This is a time to build bridges, not walls, to pull Americans together, not set us apart. And like so many in the Trump administration, this Attorney General has no regard for the truth. What he said earlier today is not true. It is a lie. But what can I say? We've seen in the Trump administration, with the investigations going on, the pleas of guilty to lying by countless individuals, colleagues. So there it is. Now, I want to just say that we're going to carry on. We want to protect our citizens from criminals. We want to protect people from improper abuse of the law. That's what it's about here. And there are some difficulties with the kind of problems we have in America with immigration, but we ought to work together. And this Attorney General is, maybe he's trying to keep his job because the President is not too happy with him. But we here are going to stick to the facts. We're going to stick to the law. And certainly we'll meet this litigation fully. And the Attorney General will explain that. We're very interested in uncovering what the Attorney General has been doing, what immigration is doing, because we want transparency, we want integrity, and we want to protect the people of California. And when it comes to these different laws, there is no doubt that the police can do their job. Now, the federal government ought to do its job and not blame California for its own inability to solve the problem, whether it's of crime or whether it's of immigration. That's the job for this Attorney General, and he shouldn't come out to a political show to try to engage in these tactics as opposed to being above the fray, being the Attorney General for all of us and working together. And despite what he's done, I still put my hand out and say, I'll cooperate, Jeff, if you can get off this current maneuver you're on, because it's unbecoming, it's based on non-truth, and I hope you'll shape up before it's too late. And I'll tell you, this lawsuit, they're talking about going to the Supreme Court, this lawsuit is going to last a lot longer than the Trump administration.
Usually as an attorney, you advise your client not to say anything in public, but I think in this case, I'm really pleased that my client, the governor, has made it very clear where the state of California stands. And I think you can trace all of this back to the fact that Washington, D.C., as the governor just mentioned, the Trump administration has just failed utterly to help us fix a very broken immigration system. And this is what it comes down to, these types of actions that take us nowhere in advancing both good immigration policy and protecting states and the people in our states to make sure that we're doing the job of public safety and advancing the general welfare of all of our people in the United States of America. I want to thank the governor for his words. I want to thank him for his actions. It was his signature on these measures that are giving Californians the type of protection they need to be able to do everything that's made us the 6th largest economy in the world today. Here in California, we respect the law and the Constitution. We expect the federal government to do the same. As I've said many times, our state laws work in concert with federal laws. And our state law enforcement officials work in concert with federal law enforcement officials every day. That's not something we intend to change. Our federal and state teams are working together, indeed today, to go after drug dealers, to combat sex traffickers, to take down gang violence, and we have no intention of changing that public safety work. Our teams have had a chance within the California Department of Justice to look at the lawsuit that Attorney General Sessions filed against us late last night, and today I want to offer a few initial responses to some of AG Sessions' claims. The lawsuit challenges some of our state laws, which are, again, fully constitutional and provide for the safety and welfare of all of our people. The Trump administration says that AB 450, a law that protects Californians' privacy at the workplace, prevents ICE from carrying out its investigations at work sites. That's not true. AB 450 clearly allows employers to cooperate with ICE. It simply requires that before immigration enforcement agents enter certain areas of the workplace or access employee records, they first present employers with documents that ensure employers and employees their rights and their privacy, and that those are being respected. The Trump administration says that AB 103, which requires my office to review detention facilities where non-citizens are held, prevents the federal government from doing its job. That's not true. Our residents and our public officials have a right to know the conditions under which people are detained in these facilities. Those conditions include whether they are being treated properly, whether they have access to necessary medical care, whether they have access to an attorney if they have an attorney, and whether or not they are being afforded due process. All people deserve humane treatment, and they deserve due process under the laws and Constitution of the United States. Finally, the Trump administration says that SB 54, the Values Act, violates federal law. That's not true either. The 10th Amendment provides California with the right to decline to participate in civil immigration enforcement. In adopting SB 54, the Values Act, California has exercised its rights to define the circumstances where state and local law enforcement may participate in immigration enforcement. And once again, California is in the business of public safety. We're not in the business of deportations. I believe it's a low blow. I believe it's a low blow for the Trump administration to deny our men and women who wear the badge the funding they need to keep us all safe by coercing us to try to do what they want us to do. That is not a good public safety technique, to try to coerce us to do what they want us to do. In California, we don't confuse coercion with cooperation. Neither should the Trump administration. I look forward to making these arguments in court, and we will continue to stand up for our police and our sheriffs, whose funding has been threatened by the Trump administration, and for the policies that we've enacted to increase trust in our communities and that our officers and sheriffs are sworn to protect. We intend to make sure public safety is job one for law enforcement in California. We respect the federal government's right to take on immigration enforcement. With that, we'll take any questions.
There were some filings with this where they laid out how they think this has interfered with their ability and endangered their officers, that kind of thing. Can you respond to that and some of the sort of the practical applications here that they're alleging?
We, as I said, work day to day, day in, day out with federal enforcement officials, not just ICE, not just CPB, but with FBI, DEA, you name it. We work with them every day. We're working hand in hand. If we're putting them in jeopardy, we would be putting our law enforcement agents and officers in jeopardy.
What's the example of an officer being put in jeopardy? John, do you have that?
Yeah,
so you don't
they
have
can't.
An example, so how I can't respond to a non.
Well, he gave the example that California would have someone in custody and they would let the person out, and then the ICE officers would have to go to the person's home and knock on a door and wouldn't know what was on the other side of the door.
That's not true. Look, we know the Trump administration is full of liars. They've pled guilty already to the special counsel. Under the laws of California, nothing stops the federal government from coming to a jail. The release records are public. There's nothing that stops a sheriff who runs the jails to working with ICE. There's nothing in the law that prevents ICE from working in our prisons and working with our Department of Corrections. Beyond that, the most serious crimes are exempted. So in many ways, there are many layers of protection. And what Jeff Sessions said is simply not true. And I call upon him to apologize to the people of California, to bringing the mendacity of Washington to California and trying to insert discord and division, and I might add dysfunctionality, in a state that's really working. So let's build some bridges, not walls.
Governor, how do you respond to what he said about Oakland's mayor, Libby Schaaf, and her decision to...
Well, I didn't hear Libby Schaaf, and I'm not going to comment on that.
Oh, no.
I will comment on anything I said.
What Sessions said today, he said that she was, again, putting people's lives in jeopardy, and
well, I think you should take that up with Libby Schaaf. I will account for whatever I say. I'm sure the Attorney General will account for what he says. But what each local mayor does or doesn't do, that's a matter of interest that people should follow up on. But I did not, other than something in the news, so I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to comment.
Governor, you suggested that the relationship between the Attorney General and the President is influencing his decision here. You really think this is the Attorney General trying to get in the good graces of the President?
Look, this is completely unprecedented for the Chief Law Enforcement of the United States to come out here and engage in a political stunt, make wild accusations, many of which are based on outright lies. That's unusual, and particularly a fellow coming from Alabama talking to us about secession and protecting the human and civil rights. I do think this is pure red meat for the base, and I would assume, but this is pure speculation, that Jeff thinks that Donald will be happier with him, and I'm sure Donald will be tweeting his joy at this particular performance. But it's not about law enforcement, it's not about justice, and it really demeans the high office to which he has been appointed.
Governor? Governor, if I could follow up on the question on Libby Schaaf, but you yourself are a former mayor of Oakland.
I sure am, and I'll tell you anything I said, I'll be glad to comment on.
So would you, as mayor, have done
No,
the
that's
same?
a would you, want to be, could it be. No, I'm here as governor. I'm not making any statements to issue regarding impending actions by the federal government. I'm speaking now about the Attorney General. Those are my comments.
Will you, Mr. Becerra, will you be able to do any discovery on this case and
the governor made a reference to the sort of information that might be available, or that you might be able to get.
They've opened themselves up to that. If they want to file a lawsuit, then we have the right to discover the basis for their lawsuit. So we'll go at it.
So what sorts of information might you be able to elicit?
Stay tuned.
Can we get into the discussions at the White House, or would those be executive privilege?
Can you speak to the arguments in their case about the supremacy clause and just elaborate on that a little bit?
I think I did in my opening comments. We believe that the 10th Amendment gives the states the rights, its rights to decide how to enforce public safety, to provide for the general welfare. And if Jeff Sessions can point out to me where in the Constitution it says that that's the federal government's prerogative to do that for the states, then we'll listen. But until he can find that provision in the Constitution, the 10th Amendment still prevails.
Could you say a few words in Spanish, if you don't mind? Just a few.
Governor?
No, I'm not going to say that. But I want to say, look, these are like all laws. There's lots of terms. There can be more than one interpretation. But what Americans have done traditionally, an attorney general would talk to our attorney general. They would work things out. This is basically going to war against the state of California, the engine of the American economy. It's not wise, it's not right, and it will not stand.
A couple of quick words in Spanish. Estamos aquí, como dice el gobernador, para no solo defender el Estado, pero el pueblo de California, porque sabemos bien que la Constitución protege las acciones, los derechos que tiene un Estado para proteger su pueblo. El gobernador, el presidente Trump, ni el fiscal general Jeff Sessions tiene el derecho de decirle a California cómo va a proteger a su pueblo. Tienen derecho de ejercer todo el poder en cuanto sea inmigración, pero en el asunto de la seguridad del pueblo, eso es algo que la Constitución deja al Estado de California y los oficiales de California.
¿Qué es lo que van a hacer ustedes para contrarrestar o responder ante esto, señor Becerra?
Estamos listos de hacer lo que hemos hecho en el pasado, y eso es defender nuestros derechos.
All right, guys, so this continues on. That's Attorney General from California, Xavier Becerra, and Governor Jerry Brown in what I think was sort of an unannounced scheduled meeting or newser. They may answer some more questions here, but it is getting a little bit heated. Trump administration, Attorney General Jeff Sessions in Sacramento to talk about sanctuary cities today. The governor coming back to give his retort on that. Let's listen in.
ICE is not only coming, but they've been here for a long time, and they're stepping it up. So we have the protections that we believe are balanced, that are consistent with state law, and which recognize federal supremacy. More than that, I don't think I want to comment.
Governor, if there's misunderstanding about California law, is it because of the terminology that's often used, calling this a sanctuary state, talking about sanctuary cities that give the idea you get here, you're safe no matter what?
Well, that's not true. There's nothing, the word sanctuary does not appear in these laws. I have never uttered that word in my presentations. This is a carefully balanced measure as recognized by the head of the California police chiefs. So a lot of this stuff is pure campaigning. Let's face it, the Trump White House is under siege. Mueller is closing in. There are more indictments to come. So obviously the Attorney General has found it hard just to be a normal Attorney General. He's been caught up in the whirlwind of Trumpism.
Not me, the other.
So that's all. Yes.
Are you guys confident that with these laws really comply with federal immigration enforcement, especially when you guys think of like Arizona State Bill 1070?
Can you say that? You say, am I confident of what?
Are you insistent that the laws comply with federal immigration enforcement, especially when you take into account Arizona State?
I can't. I'm sorry. You got it. I'm not getting the full drift.
Are you guys sure that these laws comply with federal immigration enforcement laws, and especially
apply to them? No, these apply to the people of California, and they're consistent with federal law. What are you saying?
Do they comply?
Yes, they comply. That's where we comply. But of course, like every lawsuit, there are different interpretations. But we've acted in good faith. The drafters of these laws are very conscientious, and we think we've drawn the proper line between what the state has competency to do and what is the overriding federal supremacy. And that's what we've done. And we're acting in good faith. Now, because of this circus that Jeff Sessions brought to Sacramento, we're engaging in this kind of dialogue. But I would hope when Sessions gets back on the plane and his deputies take over, we can have a rational discussion between lawyers and iron out this balance, this relationship between the federal government and the state government.
Can I just add a clarification here? Arizona was trying to enact immigration laws. That's a federal prerogative. We're not trying to enact immigration laws. We're enacting public safety laws. And the Trump administration doesn't like that. But we're not trying to get into their business. They're trying to get into our business.
How can you interpret, for AB 405, how can you interpret any other way listing, putting up on a bulletin board when ICE will come? How can you interpret that any other way than warning people that
We don't,
the
there's,
authorities are
read me
coming?
this place in the statute where it says we can tell ICE when they can come.
Well, isn't part of the statute that the employer must give notification that ICE will be coming?
We asked employers to give notification of activities. That doesn't stop ICE from doing what it has to do. How does that stop ICE from enforcing immigration law?
Isn't it the equivalent of the mayor of Oakland saying, be warned, federal authorities are coming?
Okay, show me where AB 450 is telling ICE what it must do.
I think, are you referring to the, have you heard of the right to counsel? Under the federal constitution, people have a right to be told that they have a right to a lawyer. And under one of our rules, when the ICE comes by, the inmates are given information about their rights under the federal and state constitution. We're not trying to interfere. We're not saying, oh, look out, the feds are coming. We're just following the law, and the law allows people to be advised of their rights under the law. And I think that's perfectly appropriate. Anything else smacks of a more totalitarian approach to things.
Governor, regarding another California law that's being challenged, there's the Reproductive Fact Act, a bill you signed in 2015, is going to be heard in the Supreme Court this month. It requires certain signage be posted in anti-abortion clinics, and the Christian groups that feel it's an infringement on their free speech. Why is this law so important to California that it's worth defending all the way to the very highest court of the land?
Well, the normal procedure is when a law is attacked to defend it, both to defend the law and to get clarification at the most appropriate level, which in this case will be the Supreme Court. And there were charges of misrepresentation, and this was an attempt to create truthful information and make it available. That's all. And the High Court will tell us what the rules are. And I'm good with that.
Everyone's entitled to accurate information about their health care. And that's simply what the FACT Act says, is you're entitled to know what you have a right to and when it comes to your health care. And so there's nothing coercive, there's nothing intrusive in the requirements of the law that infringe upon someone's First Amendment rights. It's about making sure women have accurate information about their health care.
Governor Brown, you just want some clarification for me.
Where are you?
This way.
You're really in the bush.
I'm
You're in the forest.
Shout it out.
The forest of cameras.
You called this an act of war from the federal government.
An act of war?
And you said that was...
That's pretty strong. But I reincorporate that comment, yes.
Okay, so does that mean that California is going to retaliate to what the federal government has...
No, we are a state of laws, and we want to observe the law, and now the Attorney General has basically thrown the gauntlet down and done it in a highly politicized way. This has never happened before, to my knowledge, in the history of California. So the Attorney General's coming out here, he gives a speech, 10 minutes, and then hightails it back to Washington. What does that do? I mean, that's not creating the comity that a state and the federal government need. So, yeah, this is a very aggressive act on the part of the Trump administration. And it's not right. It won't stand. And as I say, I'm sure this lawsuit has more longevity than the Trump administration itself.
Attorney General, Sessions today made the argument that these ICE sweeps have rounded up criminals that are dangerous to the public. Do you have any kind of statistics on what percentage of these folks had no criminal record? And if so, what does the state intend? Can the state provide any protection for them, or what's the outcome?
Well, the main point is that these laws do not protect criminals, and they explicitly allow for the handover of these criminals. They're listed, all the very serious crimes. But secondly, you make the point that there's a lot of innocent people out there. And this is the problem. We have millions of people who are here without papers. And some of them have been working for 10, 15, 20 years. They've been serving the economy. A lot of them are doing the dirty work, whether it's washing dishes or picking fruit in the field. And now the Attorney General is basically initiating a reign of terror. What we can do is do what we're doing through these laws. But again, we're going to do it with respect to the supremacy clause of the federal government.
Governor, the Attorney General said that people who are supporting these bills believe in open borders. Do you believe in open borders?
No, I don't at all. Again, that's one of the lies. There are 3 lies. Open border, lie 1. Protect criminals, lie 2. California wants to secede, lie 3. Not true.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys, so this is all super interesting, and if you haven't been following this, I'm going to catch you up briefly. What happened is, quickly here, if they keep this shot, we'll just keep this up for now, but just less than an hour ago or so, the breaking news was that U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, it came out that he essentially attacked the mayor of Oakland, California, saying, how dare you needlessly endanger the lives of law enforcement just to promote your radical open borders agenda. So he was attacking for warning residents about impending immigration raids. This comes a day after they filed a lawsuit against California saying that it obstructed federal immigration enforcement. So he was actually at the California Peace Officers Association in Sacramento, and that's where he was giving a speech when this all happened. He was addressing Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, whom you saw the governor speak about there, and Governor Brown was like, you need to address her about this. So he is sort of separating himself from that, essentially. But this was, again, after the Trump administration sued to block the California sanctuary state laws that extend protections to people living in the U.S. illegally. So in case you missed some of that, that was the unplanned newser with the Attorney General and Governor from California sort of retorting back to what just happened with U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions in Sacramento. So same city, they're right there. So in case you missed some of that, I want to play that out for you. It's quick. It is the moment that this all happened. He was speaking again at the California Peace Officers Association in Sacramento this morning. And this just happened. Check it out. This was the language that was used.
What you do, what now? 25,000 members, the top leadership in this state. You represent a force for good, for law, for safety in our country, and that's what it's all about for us. I want to thank other law enforcement leaders who are here today. Sheriff Bill Brown of the California Sheriff's Association, Chief Ed Medrano of the California Chiefs of Police Association, Mark Brewster of the California Narcotics Officers Association, District Attorney Tom Reby of the California District Attorneys Association, and Commissioner Warren Stanley of the California Highway Patrol. That's a good group, and I'm honored to be with you in this association. McGregor Scott is a great leader in the Department of Justice. I learned about him before I took office, and we were talking about talent around the country and people who could do things to make America better. You have clearly, by reputation, and I think he'll prove once again to be one of the very finest United States attorneys in our country. Also, I would note that California is a big state, an important state, and it's important that we have safety and order here, and we need talented United States attorneys, and that will be our goal. And one more thing I would say to you, a directive I've given to every one of our Washington prosecutors and staff and to our United States attorneys around the country that we are partners with you, that we're going to establish a kind of law enforcement partnership that will be effective in making our communities safer. I know firsthand the importance of the work that you do. I know its dangers, its challenges, its frustrations and satisfactions. I've had firsthand experience in these matters working with your colleagues in Alabama. I've sat by them in trials. I've interviewed them late at night. We've talked about the challenges and the realities of the world that you and your officers work in. And I have inexpressible pride in the federal women and men of law enforcement. They are talented and provide such great leadership and work throughout our country. I am fully aware that 85% of all our state and all our law officers are state and federal. And I'm well aware that the increased training, professionalism, leadership, and more effective law enforcement policies of our departments nationwide, your departments, over several decades, has been a critical factor in reversing the dramatic rise in crime that we saw in the 60s and 70s, and I started out as a young prosecutor in the late 70s. Then over a 22-year period, we saw homicide rates cut by half. We saw drug use fall basically by half, and violent crime fall dramatically throughout this country. It was an achievement few people ever expected could happen in those days when we were there, and it was increasing every year. Much of the transformative leadership for this change arose from your former governor, President Ronald Reagan, and aided by his fabulous counselor and later Attorney General of the United States, Ed Meese. Thank you for both of them. They've made America a better and safer place, no doubt. Ed Meese continues to be active in Washington. He is an intellectual force when it comes to crime, and I value his judgment and friendship highly. So, in recent years, I don't know, maybe we got complacent, took our eye off the ball, but recent trends in crime are worrisome. In 2014 and 15, violent crime stopped falling and jumped 7% nationwide. Homicide surged 20% in those 2 years, the largest increase since 1968. Drug availability rose, drug purity rose, drug prices fell. These are not good trends. And along with the new killer drug fentanyl, overdose deaths reached levels we have never seen before. 66,000 last year. The largest cause of death for Americans aged 50 and below is overdose drug death. This is why on his first day in office, President Trump sent me 3 executive orders. He knows how to send orders, and we intend to follow. 1, back the men and women in blue. Let's make sure that the people, law officers throughout this country, know we support you, we value what you do, and we're behind you. Reduce crime in America. That's a pretty simple directive. Reduce crime in America, not preside over ever-increasing increases, and to dismantle transnational criminal gangs and organizations. So we embrace those goals at the Department of Justice, and we hope that you do too, and we know you do. So let me be explicit. Our express goal is to reduce the violent crime rate, reduce it, to reduce the homicide rate, to reduce the amount of opioids being prescribed in this country. We still prescribe too many, I think we all agree. And to reduce overdose deaths. These are just some of the goals that we have. So together, let's get them. Let's solve and achieve these goals. It's not a job that we do so much as a service. It's a high calling, I think. And a lawful immigration system that serves the national interest helps us to achieve these goals and more benefits for America. And that's what I have to talk about today. We are a strong, prosperous, and orderly nation. California is a great state, so important to America. And such a nation, such a country as ours, must have a lawful system of immigration. I'm not aware of any advanced nation who disagrees with that concept. and let no one contend that we reject immigration and want to wall off America from all immigrants. President Trump and the American people know what's happening. We admit 1.1 million immigrants lawfully to permanent resident status in the United States with a clear path to citizenship, green card status every year. No nation comes close to that. It's the highest numbers in the world. Indeed, at this unprecedented rate, we will soon have the largest percentage of non-native born in our nation's history, and the percentage is continuing to rise every year thereafter. Thus, the good and decent people of this country are right to insist that this country and its officials should end the illegality, create a rational immigration flow, protect the nation from criminal aliens, and preserve the national interest. It cannot be that someone who illegally crosses the border and 2 days later arrives in Sacramento, Dubuque, Louisville, Central Islip, New York, is home free, never to be removed. How can that be? It cannot be the policy of a great nation to up and reward those who unlawfully enter its country with legal status, Social Security, welfare, food stamps, work permits, and so forth. How can this be a sound policy? Meanwhile, those who engage in the process lawfully and patiently and wait their turn are discriminated against, it seems, at every turn. Most Americans get this. They are working hard to make ends meet, follow the rules. They teach their children to follow the rules. They believe in the rule of law. They want to keep their loved ones safe. They, our citizens, want our government to think about them for a change, to think about their interest for a change. They have dreams too. Frankly, the common sense concept, this concept was a big part of President Trump's election. And elections have consequences. I think the American people spoke about this subject. Immigration law is the province of the federal government. It's in the Constitution. This administration and this Justice Department are determined to make it work effectively for all our people. I understand that we have a wide variety of political opinions out there on immigration, but the law is in the books, and its purposes are clear and just. There is no nullification. There is no secession. Federal law is the supreme law of the land. I would invite any doubters to go to Gettysburg or to the tombstones of John C. Calhoun and Abraham Lincoln. This matter has been settled. A refusal to apprehend and deport those, especially the criminal element, effectively rejects all immigration law. It's a rejection of law, and it creates an open borders system. It's the only way it can be described. And open borders is a radical, irrational idea that cannot be accepted. The American people will not accept it. And the United States of America is not some idea. It's a secular nation state with a constitution, with laws, with borders, all of which are designed to protect our nation's interest, and we should be able to agree certainly on this. So to carry out the intent of our laws, we need law officers. That's what you and your departments do every day. We need our immigration and customs officers, our ICE officers, our Border Patrol officers. They are your brothers and sisters. President Trump, the Congress, and the American people want to accomplish these goals our laws have set out for them. That's why we pay them. That's why they get a salary. But California, we have a problem. A series of actions and events has occurred here that directly and adversely impact the work of our federal officers. For example, the mayor of Oakland has been actively seeking to help illegal aliens avoid apprehension by ICE. Her actions support those who flout the law and boldly validates illegality. There's no other way to interpret those remarks. To make matters worse, the elected lieutenant governor of the state praised her for doing so. bragging about and encouraging the obstruction of our law enforcement. The law is, I'm afraid this is an embarrassment to the proud state of California. Tom Homan, the director of ICE, has said recently, quote, being a law enforcement officer is already dangerous enough. But to give the criminals a heads up that we're coming in the next 24 hours increases that risk. I watched the mayor's statement when she said her priority is the safety of the community, but what she did had the exact opposite effect, close quote. And I think that's a fair criticism and statement. According to Acting Director Homan, ICE failed to make 800 arrests that would have been made if the mayor had not made her statement. Those are 800 wanted criminals that are now at large in that community, 800 wanted criminals that ICE will now have to pursue by other means with more difficulty in dangerous situations, all because of one irresponsible action. So here's my message to Mayor Schaaf. How dare you needlessly endanger the lives of our law enforcement officers to promote a radical open borders agenda. But in California, we have bigger problems also, more than just one mayor. For example, in January, Ventura County declined a request from ICE to hold an alien Ventura had arrested and put in their custody for continuous sexual abuse of a child. Instead of being removed from the country, he was released back into the community, and now federal law enforcement officers will try to find him and arrest him wherever he may be. In recent years, the California legislature has enacted a number of laws designed to intentionally obstruct the work of our sworn immigration officers, to intentionally use every power the legislature has to undermine the duly established immigration law of America. California law now won't let employers voluntarily allow ICE agents on their property. Won't even let them come on their property when the company voluntarily allows them to. And California requires employers to give notice to the employees before ICE comes to inspect their workplace. When this law was before the General Assembly, a Judicial Committee report explicitly stated that its goal was to frustrate, quote, an expected increase in federal immigration enforcement actions, which of course it was. It was designed to frustrate the work that we're required to do under the laws of this country. ICE agents are federal law enforcement officers carrying out federal law. California cannot forbid them or obstruct them in doing their jobs. Just imagine if a state passed a law forbidding employers for cooperating with OSHA in ensuring workplace safety, or the Environmental Protection Agency for looking after polluters. Would you pass a law to do that? And just think about the situation it puts California employers in. They want to help law enforcement. They want to do their civic duty. We ought to be encouraging them and thankful to them. But your state attorney general has repeatedly promised to prosecute these business owners. Let me quote what he said more than once. Ignorance of the law is no excuse if you violate it. Quote, you are subjecting yourselves to up to $10,000 in fines for violations. So this is a great state. I don't want to be in this position of having to challenge these laws. It wasn't something I chose to do, but I can't sit by idly while the lawful authority of federal officers are being blocked by legislative acts and politicians. California has also claimed authority to inspect facilities where ICE holds people in custody. Already this year, California has specifically and in a discriminatory manner targeted 6 facilities and demanded documents and other materials from the Department of Homeland Security. California won't let law enforcement officers like you and your people to
All right, guys, let's take it back into the newsroom for now. Thanks so much for watching Fox 5 Live here on this Wednesday, March 7th. So glad to have you on. If you're on with us and you have any comments or questions, let me know. I'm Molly here in the newsroom. Just jumping around different video feeds that we have coming in for breaking news. The Sessions video that was from earlier this morning, it didn't come off as forcefully as I thought initially it would, but it was interesting to catch that sort of rebuttal live from California's governor and attorney general after the fact, and to sort of hear Sessions say what he said that made that breaking news announcement that he called out the Oakland mayor there saying, how dare you? And there's this battle that continues after now the federal government has sued the state of California for these sanctuary city laws. So lots of drama there, lots of stuff to kind of still watch, questions to be answered. Meanwhile, snow, guys, continues to pummel the East Coast. I believe this is live shot Philadelphia, complete whiteout in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania officials and the governor had some words on what they're doing. There was an update this morning on the storms affecting the areas of central and eastern PA and what they were going to do to help people with that. So we'll bring you that in a little bit. But quickly, also a live look at New York City. There's the snow there. It looks like the shot kind of froze on us. But I want to go over to some other breaking news right now in DC, right here on the Capitol Hill. Guys, live outside of Mitch McConnell's office, there is reportedly what we see here, a student sit-in. The students are sitting in the hallways outside of his office, chanting, speaking, making their voices heard. Assumedly, this is about the March for Our Lives and that type of thing with these students and these high school students and gun control. But let's listen in to see what they have to say. Live on Capitol Hill. Here we go.
Looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Since Sandy Hook, we said never again. We demanded gun reform then, just as we do now. And ever since Sandy Hook, there's been countless numbers of other tragedies that has happened in America. We said never again then, and we really say never again now. Sandy Hook, 26 killed on December 14, 2012. Not one more. Navy Yard, 12 killed on September 16, 2013. Not one more. Charleston, 9 killed on June 17, 2015. Not one more. Oakland, 9 killed on October 1st, 2015. Not one more. San Bernardino, 14 killed on December 2nd, 2015. Not one more. Orlando, 49 killed on June 12, 2016. Not one more. Las Vegas, 58 killed on October 1st, 2017. Not one more. Sutherland Springs, 26 killed on November 5th, 2017.
Can you back up, please?
Not one more. Parkland,
come on, people. You know I'm going to work with you.
Not one more. 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 Why are we here?
Hey guys, on down further.
I don't want to be afraid.
Careful, you almost hit him in the face.
I don't want to be afraid of education.
Keep on going back. Keep on going back, guys.
This is what democracy looks like.
Right here.
This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Hey, hey, ho, ho. The NRA is not this way. Hey, hey,
walking this
ho,
way.
ho. The NRA is not no.
Yeah, we're going to be walking this way.
The NRA is not no. Hey, hey.
Folks, you need to go behind the officer.
So this is to me what looks like, guys, a live, somewhat chaotic scene here on Capitol Hill. This is in the Senate offices here outside of Senator Mitch McConnell's office, we're told. You can see a bunch of security presence there. Of course, it doesn't seem like it's getting too unruly, but what's interesting is senators and officials and people in that building do need to get by and walk through. So there are people sort of escorting them by, some of these students who are, of course, leading on with their chants. This seems to be somewhat of a continuation from the other day, right, when students were sitting in the road, kind of blocking traffic. traffic and sort of eliciting response from security and police, Capitol Hill police, who were there to one by one sort of take the students out of the road. This seems to be a bit more safe and doable in the hallways here as they continue to sort of let their voices be heard and tell people what they want for change outside of the Senate Majority Leader's office here on Capitol Hill. So you can see here some other, what looks to be officials trying to get by. Police seem to be moving the media back here, so I'm not quite sure what kind of shot we'll get, but it looks like Fox is trying to effort getting the picture of these students, just about a handful of them, maybe 10 or 15 of them, sitting in the hallway here. Again, this is in the Senate offices outside Mitch McConnell's office. We'll see if we have any more updates on this, and we'll bring them to you live.
Not one more. Guys, spread out down the hallway.
Hey guys, we gotta get you guys back up. We gotta make a move. Let's go. Go ahead on back for me. Come on guys, back on up for me. Come on. Man, you're gonna have to go ahead and get up for me, okay? All right, back on up for me, guys. Back on up. Back on up. Come on, guys. Back on up for me.
Where'd you want to take them?
Yeah, let's take them back as far as we can right now. All right. Come on, guys. Back on up for me. Back on up. Yeah, we're going to make sure that this side over here. Look. All right. Go ahead, back on up for me, guys. Back on up.
Get out and go down the hallway now.
Come on, guys. Back on up. Back on up for me. Back on up. Back on up.
Keep going.
Back on up. Come on. Back on up.
They need to be down the hall to the right.
Back on up for me. Come on, guys. Back on up.
You need them down the hallway. Get out.
Back to the corner. Move back. Move back. Move back, guys. All the way back, guys. All the way back. Guys, you gotta move back. Turn around and walk backwards, please. Turn around and walk back.
I need for you to stop moving.
Guys, you gotta turn around.
So it seems to be getting a little bit hostile in here, guys. This is, again, the hallway in one of those Senate buildings in Congress. Students are, I believe, getting handcuffed and, I guess, arrested. They were given 3 or so warnings. Police said, we're going to get on this microphone and give you a couple different warnings here, and then we're going to take action. So you can see some of the students. There's a girl in the denim jacket there, kind of walking off, hands behind her back. Not quite sure what goes down from here, but they sort of stood their ground and kept chanting and stayed there, so they are being taken away, just like we saw those students in the middle of the road the other day on Independence Avenue, when we saw them sort of blocking the road there with their protests. So this is again happening, sort of it seems to be a reprise of the other day, this time on Capitol Hill. Media, of course, there in full force to catch the action. Police kept moving them back, unfortunately, trying to get the best shots in here for us to see. But we're watching this along with you guys here in the Fox 5 DC newsroom, checking it out. Not quite sure when this video will cut, but pretty good, solid footage of these protests on Capitol Hill today, and just more reiteration of what this means to some of the students. Let me know what you think. What do you think about all this? I know you guys are chatting it up in the live chat, so let me know. And we'll take it from there.
Guys, they're coming this way. Y'all have to slide over. You gotta slide over. Gotta slide over. Sir.
Let's go.
Gotta slide over, sir. Gotta slide over.
One more. Not 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 one more. We hear you. We're with you. Not one more. Not one more. Not one more.
Yes. Yep.
Not one more. 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 Not one more.
You gotta slide back, sir.
Not one more.
Sir, gotta get over this way. Gotta slide over this way.
Clear a little bit.
Okay. I think we got it.
You want to go this way?
I apologize. Hey. Hi. So they were stepping my show. We got Oh, you don't know what you missed, Mike. You know, Mike?
Nice little behind the scenes tour there of the media section of the Capitol where they set up and get some of those interviews for you guys. But take a look at the Capitol today on this gorgeous shot. Here it is. That's where you were looking. That's an outside live look at our Capitol Dome today, guys. So you never know what's going to pop up. We're seeing these protests all week. We are definitely seeing students who are not letting up on their responses to, of course, the gun violence that we've been seeing, the school shootings that seem to be endless. Hopefully, you know, we've been watching the government try to take action here and there. So we're going to continue to monitor this and follow the live events that happen related to this, including these protests. And that was kind of out of nowhere, so we didn't expect that. But always some good little content for our show. Guys, we're live in the DC newsroom here. We're talking about weather as well, and Philadelphia right now is just getting pummeled. Check it out, almost complete whiteout here in Philly, so much so that, of course, leaders, governors, people who are taking control to protect their cities are coming to podiums all this morning and talking about what they're doing to prepare for this week, as it's already sort of happening in Boston, in Philadelphia. Luckily, in New York, we had a live shot earlier. We don't have it right now. Didn't look as bad. And right here in DC, it's just sort of a cloudy, dark gray mess. But this morning, Governor Wolf of Pennsylvania updated on the storm that's going to be affecting a lot of central and eastern parts of the state of Pennsylvania. So listen in to what they had to say this morning in case this is relevant to some of you guys.
Good morning, everybody. I just received the briefing from PEMA Director Rick Flynn and our state agencies on the winter storm that is moving its way through Pennsylvania. We know that the storm has shifted east, and that's a good thing for many people in Pennsylvania, but it's still going to have a significant impact on the eastern third of our state. This is a powerful storm, and conditions can change quickly. I think we need to understand that. You look out the window right now here in the Harrisburg area, and you could be forgiven for thinking that this isn't going to be a big deal. We're still thinking this is going to be a big deal, and in certain parts of Pennsylvania, it's going to really hit very, very hard. So we're doing everything we can to prepare and to respond to that. We know this has already been a difficult week for many of our citizens in the areas that are going to be affected most heavily today. And this has been a really tough week for our first responders, our emergency managers, transportation, utility workers, and state and local officials. And I want to thank them, and I think all of us in Pennsylvania owe a deep debt of gratitude to those people who have worked around the clock, many of them hours and hours on end. They're really tired, and we're looking at another storm right now. So they've worked in difficult conditions of extreme cold and wind to help their neighbors keep safe and warm, and I think all of us owe them a great thanks. These storms are difficult for these workers. They're difficult for their families. And I think all of us, again, need to make sure that they understand that what they do is much appreciated. So, given last week's storm, we're focused on continuing to get power restored, get roads open, and get communities back to normal from last week's storm. And this storm simply complicates that effort that's underway. But we've made progress. Since last week's storm, we've reduced outages, power outages, from 600,000 to just under 40,000. We've lifted work restrictions to allow utility companies to work to restore power more quickly. But we still have work ahead of us. So I ask residents to be patient, be safe, and be helpful to your neighbors. Please heed warnings from emergency officials and law enforcement. Third, please limit your travel and allow emergency responders to do their work. It's really helpful. If you don't have to travel, don't. Stay off the roads. That's going to help keep you safe, but it's also going to help keep others safe. It also allows crews to clear and treat roadways without disruption. This is all important. We're taking precautions to prepare for the worst that this storm can deliver. So here's what we've done. We've staged and moved equipment and personnel to respond in the areas we believe are going to be most heavily hit. PennDOT is lowering speeds on roadways and restricting commercial traffic. PennDOT has moved most equipment to areas expected to be impacted most significantly, so we're sharing resources whenever we can. We have 450 members of the National Guard mobilized and on standby throughout the eastern half of the state. And PEMA is doing work to make sure local communities have the resources they need to manage and respond to the storm. Counties in the direct path of the storm have PEMA and PA National Guard personnel on site ready to assist immediately as they're needed. We're doing everything we can to support communities, assist citizens and first responders, and most importantly, we want to keep people safe. I ask all Pennsylvanians to be safe. Help us in this endeavor. Limit your travel. Heed warnings from your local officials and check on your neighbors, especially the elderly. So now I want to turn this over to PEMA Director Rick Flynn for a further update on the state and local responses. Rick?
Thank you, Governor, and good morning. Again, Governor Wolf is heavily engaged in what we do and always is in keeping in contact. And one of the things we did in preparation for the storm is start at 10 o'clock yesterday morning and activated the Commonwealth Response Coordination Center. That gave us time to do the planning efforts and coordination efforts with all of the counties affected. And as the Governor pointed out, our significant concern has been those folks that are still in a disaster survivor mode, if you will, because they've had no power, and that is obviously up in the Northeast and specifically in Pike County. We've been working very closely with them. We said, as the Governor mentioned, plenty of resources. In fact, our state incident management team's up there functioning right now, working with the counties and working to help disaster survivors. But the Commonwealth Response Coordination Center activated yesterday. The PennDOT Area Command came in also at the same time. Then we activated the full Commonwealth Response Coordination Center today with the State Police, the Attorney General's Office, the Civil Air Patrol, the Public Utility Commission, the Department of Health, the American Red Cross, Department of Human Services, Department of Environmental Protection, the Department of Conservation and National Resources, Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, the DDAP agency, as well as PennDOT and Turnpike. And again, you know, I think probably more anything else at this point is one of the things that happens when a storm occurs is that obviously people do heed at times, stay off the roads and such. But then when they get out and then the storm slows down, they believe they can travel, and we don't want that to occur. You know, our concern is the storm's not, our role is not over until everything is back to normal. And so we're going to be engaged here for that event. I will say to you that we have resources available. You know, one of the most valuable resource if you're on a highway and you get stuck is the PA 511 Connect, because that wireless emergency alert will come to you and messages will be able to be sent to you. I'd encourage you, if that happens, not only be prepared, a go kit in your car, if you will, but be able to get that wireless emergency alert and connect. We were able to connect with over 200 vehicles in this past event and gave them valuable information. But in addition to that, we have the Ready PA is a great resource for preparedness information, and that's www.readypa.gov, and on our Facebook and Twitter. And I mentioned 511 PA Connect is a service that allows two-way communication. So we hope that no one gets in difficult times. As mentioned, our most vulnerable population in the Commonwealth is our elderly. Take care of your neighbors. That's what we ask. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we're all ready to take any questions you might have. Any questions?
In terms of the vehicle bans on the highways, that can probably about that.
Yeah. Secretary Richards?
Sure. We're in direct communication with our neighbors in New York State,
And we're working with them to make sure we help commercial vehicles. We have right now full commercial restrictions on 84 and 380, and we have limits on empty trailers as well as double trailers throughout. And we continue to monitor the storm. We're going to take another look, a hard look at noon, and then again at 2 o'clock to see if those restrictions should stay in place. And again, we are coordinating very carefully with New York, because when there are restrictions, trucks will park where they can, and we want to make sure we are ready for that as well. We're working alongside with the Turnpike as well. I'll let Mark update as far as or the restrictions, or I can update the restrictions on the northeastern extension as well. They are following with speed restrictions and as well with the commercial restrictions. Again, we are working together with New York, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and PennDOT. We are coordinated to make sure we're keeping everyone safe in all the commercial routes as well. We continue to do that. Also, I believe east of Morgantown, those restrictions are in place. Otherwise, the Turnpike is regular speeds and regular traffic. We understand economic development and what's important, and we want, where it is safe, to make sure that the commercial routes can function as they need to today. But obviously, where safety is an issue, we want to make sure that everyone's safe, and where speeds need to be lowered, they're lowered, and to keep the traveling public as safe as possible.
Let me just add, this is, again, a storm that is going to be very volatile. The conditions are going to change, and we're expecting, as bad as things are in some areas already, they're going to get a lot worse at different times during the latter part of the day. So we want to be careful. Anything else?
Are there any concerns right here in central Pennsylvania? Obviously, in the eastern part of the state, it's looking like they're going to be hit, but right now we're not really seeing much. Anything you want people here in central Pennsylvania to know?
Yeah, I think let's prepare for the worst. And again, we can hope for the best. And this is one of those storms that appears to have moved east, and I think it has. So we might, here in central Pennsylvania, not get as much as we expected, but we're still going to have a storm here. And the same is true here as true everywhere else. If you don't have to travel, don't travel today. You know, take it easy and help our first responders, help the people who are trying to keep our roads open to do their jobs. Yes.
Activated. They haven't been deployed yet.
They have been deployed. They're on standby, but you want to mention?
Yes, sir. They're on standby in different locations on the eastern part of the state, or eastern 1/3 of the state. 450 personnel, and the type of standby missions they have right now is heavy tow capability and miscellaneous transportation capabilities. We have liaison officers positioned in 9 different county EOCs right now.
What will be some of the criteria for actually deploying?
Depending, that'll be determined when the county has an unmet need. That's when our soldiers will support.
Have you, your forecasters given you any idea as to specifically what areas might bear the brunt of this?
That's based on the the 9 counties that we're in. They're the counties that anticipate the needs.
What counties are they?
Let's see, Bucks, Montgomery, and I'm going off memory here, Pike, Monroe, Philadelphia, Delaware, and I know that's not all 9, but that's going without my notes.
Let me just add something to that. We can look at the weather forecast, but here's what happens on the roads. You'll have a jackknife tractor trailer, and that could happen anywhere. And then folks in the National Guard, PennDOT, Pennsylvania State Police have to respond as best they can. This storm is complicating those factors because there are going to be sort of micro bursts of snow, and we don't know exactly where they're going to be. There might be times when 2 to 4 inches of snow fall in 1 hour in parts of these highways. And so what we're doing is standing ready, everybody here, to make sure that wherever that happens, wherever the need is, we're doing everything to help. Any other questions? Yes.
So when the forecast changed, why did you not reopen the Capitol this morning?
First of all, I didn't know that the weather forecast had changed dramatically, and there are people who have to commute here from far away. So we were trying to anticipate the needs and the safety requirements of all the folks who work for the state. So an abundance of caution is better than trying to make sure that we do business in the normal way. So our caution may be a little bit overdone today, but I'm glad people are safe. Anything else?
What role did the state meteorologists play in all of this, in all of your planning and operations?
It was central to our planning and continual updates. One of the things, if you notice, you go into the commercial weather services on a day like today, it's hard to actually get on. So this is somebody who works for us and actually could keep us up to date and lets us all know what we need to do to make sure that we're keeping people safe. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, guys, so weather, another thing that is being taken, of course, very seriously. They have to, this nor'easter, I'm seeing these video feeds come in from all over, like weather people from all over, different stations up and down the East Coast, and the reports are intense. It's a big storm, and the counties need to really take this seriously. Meanwhile, here in DC, it's amazing what a few hours can do, or really even minutes. I think they brightened the screen a little bit, but you can see how the clouds are still kind of rolling through, but it's pretty bright, a little bit of sun too, so the skies are somewhat clear here as opposed to in Pennsylvania where we saw that snowy scene earlier, and New York City as well. I'm getting a little bit of a warning that we might have a gun control newser coming up, and if we do get that in time, I'm going to roll that through. It's reportedly Senator Marco Rubio on gun control. As we know, he's spoken with students and people involved, people who had a direct relation to the recent shooting, and he had held that sort of town hall on stage with CNN. And it was quite interesting to see what he had to say and see the banter between him and the students. We're told that he is having a newser right now. So I'm not getting that in just yet. The shot is not up. If it does come up, I will bring that to you guys. But speaking of Women's Month, and one of you guys was mentioning this on the chat, it's very exciting, right? March is Women's Month. Tomorrow is technically International Women's Day. I want to bring to your attention kind of a cool local angle. Check out this tweet from DC Police. This is at DC Police Department. They tweeted this out this morning, and it's perfectly relevant for today, for this month, for Women's Month. This was a DC officer, Gail Cobb. She was the country's first female African-American police officer killed in the line of duty. You can read more about her life, and they linked her page there, and they put this up in honor of Women's History Month. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing that they did, and it's awesome to see DC Police sort of engaged in this month and what it means to them, and tweeting that out for DC people to see and for you guys to see too on our stream. So we'll close it with that. We'll throw up a little bit of music. That's our closer today, guys. If we happen to get that news conference in, you just never know. Sometimes things come up, sometimes they don't. But if we do, we'll throw it up for you guys live. But if not, take care, guys. Have a great Wednesday. We'll catch you again tomorrow. And thanks for joining us on our stream, our midday stream here in the newsroom, guys. We're Fox 5 Live at Fox 5 DC. I'm Molly Nevola. We'll be back tomorrow around 11:30 for more live and breaking news. Lots of stuff today. We jumped from California, DC, breaking students protesting in the Capitol. It's a mix. You just never know what you're going to get. So hope that you enjoy it, guys. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Take care. Snowy scene to finish it out.